Modesty. Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to my channel. This is Toby here, and we are back with a video, and this video is going to be very clearly in the controversy series. So I hope you guys are excited for today's video. So yes, we will be talking about modesty and everything that comes with it. And I don't know if you guys like it when I ask you that series of questions that I tend to ask in my controversy videos, but essentially what we're debating is whether or not modesty applies solely to women, whether or not women have to be modest or dress appropriately when entering a place of worship or a place where there are going to be a lot of guys. And I think those are the two main questions. I don't have a long list of questions for this video, but you know, that's essentially the gist. So the reason I wanted to talk about this is because it's something that my mom often tells me, always repeating herself and constantly making sure that I'm dressed modestly, dressed in a respectable way. Yeah, it's something that my mom is always like repeating herself and always talking about. She's always like, you guys need to dress respectably. When I say you guys, I mean me and my sister. You guys need to dress respectably. You guys need to respect yourselves. You don't want to draw this type of attention. You don't want to do this. You don't want to do that. Blah, 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 blah. And so it's always constantly, I guess, on my mind. And I mean, I would say that I'm a pretty modest person. Generally speaking, I don't do a whole lot of cleavage. I like to wear short skirts. I don't do it as often as I used to, but I do like to wear short things. I like to wear ripped jeans. I like to wear tight jeans. I wear tight things sometimes. I don't know if those are things that you would consider immodest, but I think for the most part I'm a pretty modest person. I like to keep things a little bit more covered up, or I do that kind of give and take thing where it's like, if it's going to be tight at the top and it's like a shirt and pants type of thing, like if it's going to be tight at the top, that needs to be a little bit more loose at the bottom. Or like if I'm showing my stomach, I won't show like my stomach and all of my legs type stuff. So yeah. Anyways, so I wanted to talk about modesty because I think that there's this general misconception that goes around in the Christian community and in the churches in general, where people think that modesty only applies to women. And in this case, there's a general misunderstanding then of what modesty means. And if we were to go and like investigate in the Bible to figure out what modesty means, we can see that in a lot of the letters that Paul wrote, and I think it's 1 Timothy, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so there are passages in Romans, 1 Timothy, and 1 Peter that discuss modesty, and essentially what we gather is that modesty is your form of worship. So not form of worship, but how you come into worship, if that makes sense. So essentially whenever you're calling upon the name of the Lord and you're asking Him to come surround you and so that you could be fully immersed in the atmosphere of worship, it's essentially how you are when you enter worship. So what Paul asks us and what Paul reminds us to do is to make sure that the attention is fully focused on God and not on you. So he advises women not to come to church dressed in like these superfluous, like super extra, so extraordinary outfits, because he's saying that essentially you're drawing attention away from God, who everyone essentially has come to worship, and you're putting it on yourself. And so in that way, it's easy for us to understand that modesty is more about how we present ourselves before God when we want to worship, and less about how we're dressed. And so in that way, you guys could easily see how it applies to both men and women. How a guy presents himself before God is just as important as how a woman presents herself before God. But before I go deeper into that, I do want to address just the dressing aspect of things. I personally think that both men and women should be very careful about how they dress themselves, especially when they're surrounding themselves or they're going to be surrounded with a lot of men and women in Christ. I think that it's just a thing for people to lust, and both men and women lust, but I guess it's more obvious or more commented on male lust. And so whenever we dress ourselves in very tantalizing ways, it's easy for guys to hunger and thirst after us and to look at us with nasty eyes and to just see us in a way that we don't necessarily want to be seen by just anyone. And that's not me saying that, oh, we should be like super careful what we wear just because guys lust, but I'm saying it more from the aspect of this verse. I think it's in Galatians, maybe like Galatians 5:4-3. It's a verse that says, children, do not lead your brothers and sisters to sin. And I think that doing things that would cause someone that you love, someone that you know, to sin is wrong. And so if that means that you have to be careful about the way that you dress around particular people, then you have to be careful about the way that you dress around particular people. I just think that this, for me at least personally, this is my primary motivation for being modest. It's because I don't want to cause other people to sin just because I want to be somehow. Like, just because I know that it's not going to do anything to me personally doesn't mean that it's not going to affect the people around me. And that's my primary motivation for dressing modestly, and I think that it's a good motivation, and I think that it's something that can be applied to all people. And so if that means that I have to wear a turtleneck to church even in the middle of the summer, then I'm going to wear a turtleneck to church even in the middle of the summer, because I don't want to have someone else's blood on my hands. I don't want to be responsible for helping someone fall into a repeated cycle of sin. And that's not to say that I'm personally responsible for them sinning, because everyone is in control of themselves and everyone is responsible for what they do. But I mean, I'm just another person just like everyone else is, and if they're seeing something that triggers them, then they're seeing something that triggers them, and I'm responsible in that way for triggering them, and I don't want to have that issue on my hands. So in that sense, should we be modest? I say yes, women in particular, and then for guys in general, I say that like when you're going out somewhere, there's not really anything that guys can wear that is extremely tantalizing. Some people who are really affected by these things and are really turned on when they see a guy naked, darn near. So I think that in that way, guys should be more conscious of how they dress, because they don't want to lead someone else to sin. And so now that I've covered the very general aspect of this, I just wanted to talk about a little bit more about modesty and how modesty is related to worship. I just think it's very important that we consider ourselves before we enter the house of worship. And so it's very important that we make sure that the attention is able to remain on God. So that if that means that we can't be super extra and look like we're going to a ball when we're going to church because we want everyone to be able to focus on God, then that's just what it is. Modesty is about how you present yourself for worship, and I think that we need to be well prepared in the eyes of God. I don't know. Like I want it to be, or we want it to be, or I don't know what I should say, but it's just about how we present ourselves before God so that He can see that though we are unworthy, we are being sincere, and we really want to enter into this atmosphere of worship without having any distractions and without being a distraction ourselves. I hope that was helpful, and I hope I answered any questions that anyone has. And if you guys disagree with me, as always, please leave your comments down in the description. No, please leave your comments down below so that we can have this conversation. Thank you guys so much for watching my video, and thank you for your continued support. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share this video so that other people can see it. Thank you guys so much. See you next time.